There was an article that came out not long ago that talked about how real estate values in the GTA had dropped by 30% since 2022. For you to lose money in a private mortgage, three things have to happen, and they all have to happen at the same time. You meet a stranger on the street and they ask you to borrow $1,000. And the guy goes, wait. Before you shrug me off, what if I give you a piece of pure gold that I know is worth $1,250? I was talking to someone not long ago and they told me that they had a mortgage that had been in default for a year. They hadn't collected payment for a year, but they hadn't moved the process. They hadn't gone through, they hadn't taken possession.
So you're saying the only difference that kept the waters calm is the tone of the conversation?
Absolutely.
Really? This is The Wealthy Lender, episode 10. I'm here with Chris Nichilo, founder of Magnetic Capital Group, and today we'll be talking about the risks of private lending in Canada, a topic heavily discussed in the comment section of the self-made pension video.
Okay. Yeah. It's I don't think I don't think people know necessarily how you lose money in a private mortgage, and I think it's so important because it can actually be very simple. Like, I think I can put it into words that anybody would understand in a very quick format. For you to lose money in a private mortgage, three things have to happen, and they all have to happen at the same time. Now, the first two, we have no control as lenders, like as the investor. We have no control over it. And those are a drop in value and the borrower stopping payments. Those have to happen at the same time. We don't control either one. So those are real risks.
Why is it not a risk just with the borrower not paying on itself?
Well, okay, because if you lend somebody, okay, let's think about it. Let's think about it this way. You meet a stranger on the street and they ask you to borrow $1,000. And you're like, you got to be kidding me. Every voice in your head is like, this, I don't know, this person just asked me for $1,000. And the guy goes, wait. Before you shrug me off, what if I give you a piece of pure gold that I know is worth $12,500? Then will you lend me the $1,000? And now you're like, well, okay, well, how do we prove that the gold is real? Well, we'll take it over to this pawn shop or any pawn shop you choose, or a gold jeweler, and have it verified. Okay, and what's in it for me? Or what am I going to get paid? Well, what do you want? Well, I want 10%. Okay, and how long do I have to pay it back? Well, I'll give you a year. So you pay me 10% interest plus the $1,000, so you pay me $1,100, and I hold the gold, which is worth 12,000, or sorry, 12, not 12,500, 1,250.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hold the gold. I'll put it in my safe, and I'll hold the gold until you come back. And if you don't come back at the end of the year, I just keep the gold. So now let's say that happens. He disappears, never comes back. You've got this gold worth $1,250, and you're owed $1,100. The 1,000 you borrowed, or he borrowed, plus the interest that you were supposed to collect but never did. Question is, can you sell the gold for $1,100? If the answer is yes, you'd be foolish not to take the investment, right?
Understood. Okay, so the reason you're not counting risk without event number 2 happening is because if they stop paying you, just simply liquidate the collateral. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So you need both of those to happen at the same time. And here's the other unique thing about those two things. If you're married, right?
Yes.
Okay. You own a house, right?
Sold it recently.
Oh, okay. Well, when you did own a house, your wife comes down for breakfast one morning and she's like, honey, I got some bad news. This house was supposed to be worth $1 million. Today I find out it's only worth 800. What are the chances that what comes out of your mouth next is, well, that's it, we're not paying the mortgage this month? Right? Like, that's not really an option. So if you're not going to pay the mortgage this month, it's not because you're throwing a temper tantrum because the value dropped. It's because you can't pay the mortgage this month for whatever reason. But it's not likely to be because you're just upset about the value. So those two things are not positively correlated. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, but let's say they do both happen. That's a problem. But the third thing that has to happen in order for you to lose money, right? Because it is a problem. If the value drops, it's an issue. The borrower stops paying, you have to act. Now, if you act, it's to take possession of the property. So the
Yes.
third thing that has to happen is once you have possession of the property, which there's a legal process for. So it takes time. You got to go through the steps. But ultimately, if you have a mortgage on this property and it's been defaulted on, you will get possession of the property in Ontario.
Okay. So the risk, if the value of the property hasn't dropped, the risk is like the 6 months or however long it takes for you to successfully liquidate. Or are you getting compensated in interest payments, like of those 6 months cumulatively at the time of sale?
Well, hold on a second, because we haven't covered the third thing that has to happen in order to lose. And then your question fits like with that. So value drop first. Borrower stops paying second. Then we go and get possession of the house. And then once we're in possession, we have to sell it. We don't have to sell it, right? So if the value drop is so significant that selling it today is going to create a loss, what could we do with it instead?
Hold it.
Hold it, rent it, renovate it, improve its value. I don't know. There's lots of different ways, but you have an asset that has a fluctuating value. And what history has told us is if value drops in real estate, eventually it comes back. And usually it doesn't take that long. So those three things have to happen all at the same time, including one that you completely control. So now that you know that, would you say it seems difficult or seems easy to lose money? And think about this. If I lent 80% of the value, right? So I lent him $1,000 and took the 1250 of gold. The $1,000 represents 80% of the value of the gold. And what's amazing about gold as collateral is that it's universally valued. So anywhere you are in the world, gold is worth what gold is worth. Okay. And it can be sold easily. It can be liquidated. So you look at real estate, residential real estate has the same two characteristics. You and I can go to the same house, do a little bit of research, and come up with a value that's probably within a very narrow range.
Yes.
Number two, real estate's easy to sell. At the right price, it always sells. Somebody's going to buy it. So you have excellent collateral, and your biggest risk is value drop. But think about this. There was an article that came out not long ago that talked about how real estate values in the GTA had dropped by 30% since 2022.
Yes.
And so an investor reached out to me and brought this article to my attention. I said, Chris, what do you think? Like this is pretty crazy. Like, 30%, 30%, 30%. Yeah. Since 2022. And I said to him, this is bad, right? Like this is significant. The article says it's the worst drop in decades. Okay. So we're at a very low point in the market. And yet the 30% drop took 3 years. And we have a 20% per year buffer at the maximum we will lend. The average is about 70%. So we have a 30% buffer. Like In order for us to be in a position where we're likely to lose, you need to have that drop happen faster than it's happened here. And we're experiencing a pretty bad market, if you will. So it's not that it can't happen, because the other way it can't happen is that you're in possession of a property that's in this situation for too long,
Yeah.
right? That can affect what you're able to collect at the end of the day, because the interest meter is continuing to run. But if I told you that 100 mortgages, there may be one in there that, if you had them all, you've owned them all and managed them well, there might be one or two in there that cause a loss for you over the course or whatever. And I told you that the loss wouldn't necessarily be that you lost your principal, more so that maybe one of those investments you were expecting to get, let's say, 8% every year for 1 year, and then it ended up being 3 years and you didn't collect all 24%. You only ended up with 12%, half of the interest that was owed to you. And so now your 8% per year for 3-year investment turned out to be, everything went wrong and you made 4% per year. I mean, and it's 1 in 100, right? So when you think about it from that perspective, it becomes easy to understand how it's difficult, not impossible, to lose. And can you really get in trouble if you don't manage the mortgage well? Yes, because you can like I was talking to someone not long ago and they told me that they had a mortgage that had been in default for a year. They hadn't collected payment for a year, but they hadn't moved the process. They hadn't gone through, like, they hadn't taken possession yet. That's just
Yeah,
sloppy.
well, that's the thing. You're assuming that enforcement is a given, but one of the comments was saying, sometimes lawyers battle it out for a long time,
Well,
and
you
you're
have to
bleeding.
control that. You have to avoid that. Yes, getting into court with in a battle for court is disastrous. You try to stay out of it. You try to take possession. You try to keep the waters calm. There can be scenarios too where a borrower is expected to pay, let's say, $2,000 a month, right? And you're directly taking that 2,000 out of their bank every month. And all of a sudden 1 month it's not there. And then you call them and they're avoidant, or they don't, you talk to them and you say, I need the $2,000 and I need it right now. And they say, I don't have it. And you're not listening to them. You're not finding out what's wrong. You're just, give me the 2,000, or, I'm going to go and take your house. It's not the right way. That's not the way to do it at all. It's so much smarter to get on the phone with that person and say, hey, notice that payment didn't come through. Is everything okay? This is the roof over their head. It's very important to them. Is everything okay? Well, not really. I'm going through some tough stuff. This happened and that's happened. And, it just feels like the walls are closing on me. I can't do. Hey, let me ask you this. I understand you can't do 2,000, but what could you do? Because anything they can do that keeps the waters calm and allows for you some time to think how you might work with them to sort this out, right? Remember, you can always sell. So, better to sell together, right, than to get lawyers involved to sell for us.
Right.
So, if I find somebody's in a jam, we're going to see if there's a workaround for the jam. Is it a temporary thing that caused this mispayment, or is it something like you lost your job and this is the beginning, right, of the pain? Okay. And let's say it's temporary. Something happened. What happened? Well, my mother passed away in another country, and in our culture, there's a lot we got to do when that happens, and it costs a lot of money, and it was a sudden big hit, or the roof of my house caved in a bit, and I put a new roof on, and really threw the budget living month to month, and now we got a problem. Okay. That might be something we could work around by restructuring, right? Then there's I lost my job, I got divorced, whatever it is, that things have changed in a significant way, and likely they're permanent. Okay, so this isn't how the picture looked when we approved the mortgage, but it's the picture today, right? So let's see if we can find a workaround. If there is none, then we have to be honest with people. Be like, listen, it's time to sell. We're willing to work with you. We're, human beings, and it's better for you to sell under no duress than it is for us to sell under power of sale. If we sell under power of sale, you're going to attract lowball offers and so on. If we work together, right, because we have an interest here, and here's the conflict. The conflict is you may be willing to sell, and I want you to sell because the way it looks, I'm reading the tea leaves. It doesn't look like you can manage this for very much longer. And then I know what happens starts to unravel. It's also not good for you because as it unravels, lawyers get involved and so on, equity's getting eaten up. So we have a vested interest in working together. Now, working together for us usually means I want to select the realtor. Why? Because they don't want you to pick someone who's either close to you and will give you a deal or low commission, low professionalism, and isn't going to do a good enough job of generating the best offer possible from the marketplace. I want people we can trust and evaluate and vet, right? Most people don't vet their realtors. They don't. They pick somebody.
So that's like step one of the waters no longer, like potentially no longer being calm is okay. We're at the end of the road.
It's not, no, the waters are still very calm and you got to keep them that way, right? And it's not difficult. These are human beings. They're in a circumstance. You have to see if you can help them. If you can help them, then you help them. If whatever's wrong is repairable, you try to get it back on the rails. Everybody wants a clean exit. Everybody wants you to come in, borrow the money, use the money to fix your circumstances, go back to a bank. That's what we want. But once we're here, month 9, month 10, month 13, you haven't been able to pay us back or you can't make the payments, there's something wrong. We have to reevaluate. We can't be like, well, it was supposed to go this way. Well, things changed. Doesn't happen very often because the collateral is so powerful, but from time to time, and listen, when people get in a jam, they want to hold on. And you can understand that as a person who's ever been a homeowner. You work so hard to get into the market, something's changed. You'd like to be able to stay in the market because you know how hard it is to get back in once you're out. That said, our prerogative is to protect the interests of the investors, and investors who invest with us. I tell them right at the beginning, sometimes there's going to be a moment maybe where you need to be patient. Okay. You got to be a human. Like you can't come in with a heavy hand and start hitting people over the head with it. We have to be patient and see if we can compassionate those types of things to an extent.
So you're saying the only difference that kept the waters calm is the tone of the conversation?
Absolutely.
Really?
No question. And a willingness to open up and have a conversation, inviting someone to a virtual meeting face to face where we can see each other and tell me what's going on.
Okay. Because I can see the water staying calm at, if you can't do 2,000, what can you do? But then if you inevitably get to the conversation of like, this sale is happening and I'm choosing the realtor.
They are not one and the same. What can you do is the beginning to it's like a symptom evaluator, right? What can you do? Because what we want to do, right, is we want consistency. So if somebody's payment is supposed to be 2,000 and they say, well, I'm really having a hard time right now, but I can do 1,500. Then you're checking to see if the 1,500 is consistent. Does it keep coming or is there still a problem, right? Can they? But all along when that's happening, you're also evaluating your position, right? Because as an investor, you're like, okay, this is not going right. Every month, $500 of the interest is going on the account. So when the mortgage gets paid out, it will get paid. You're not giving them a break. You're just collecting 75% of the payment now and deferring 500 of it till later.
Okay, so that was my initial question. So you're saying that like during the power sale process, if it takes 6 months, those 6 months of accrued interest will get paid out at liquidation?
Provided there's enough funds.
Provided there's enough equity left.
Correct. There's a waterfall.
Okay.
Right? There's an order in which things get paid.
Okay. That's good to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So all this to say, and listen, there's a lot of topics that can come off this one, right? There's a lot of spin-off topics we can go deeper on. But for the sake of this particular episode, what I want people to know is that if managed well, it's difficult to lose. It's difficult, not impossible, difficult. We can make it very difficult for an investor to lose because, I mean, it's early detection, right, of a problem. It's the willingness to interact and get on the level with a borrower and hopefully have them tell you the truth, right? It's a big piece of it, right? People are very private about finance, and sometimes they tell you what they think you want to hear instead. We just love you. Just tell us the truth, because if all the cards are on the table, we can at least try to work it all out. Um, but not everybody's on top of it the way they
Okay.
should be, in my opinion.
You're saying a common mistake is not being
Negligence.
on top of it from the get-go, and also heated
Just not,
conversations with the first sign of
yeah,
default.
not paying attention, right? So not paying attention close enough, thinking, I've lent them this money. If they pay me, they pay me. If they don't pay me, then I take the house. Like that mentality, especially if you've never done it or gone through the process, it's flawed. There's a lot of things you need to do to initiate the process. Even if you think I got a lawyer that I can work with. Well, yes, that's great, but you have to instruct the lawyer. You have to tell the lawyer what you want them to do, or else you just leave it to them. Anyways, it's avoidable. A lot of it is avoidable and workable, because the collateral is so powerful. It's so
How many
strong, right?
how many pages are the initial agreements at Magnetic?
It's a lot. Like, I want to say our commitment package is double figures at least. I think 10, at least 10.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
everything's a compilation of things we've learned over the years, and looking at other people's commitments and studying them and taking the pieces out of it that make the most sense and building something that is as ironclad as you can, and paying attention to what happens with other private lenders in a court situation, and knowing, having good lawyers that can research that case law and keep us current on what's being challenged, what's becoming more difficult, or what we need to change, and so on. So there's a constant adjustment, but that's like anything else. I mean, that's not really a burden if you're committed to private mortgage investing. But obviously, a lot of people would do well to just have it all done for them. That's obviously the value in Magnetic.
You mentioned a point. You're underwater. The equity isn't enough to get you out. The LTV
Yeah.
might be even higher than 100.
Yeah.
And then from there, you either rent. Well, you're definitely holding it, and then you're either renting it, renovating it, or doing some other form of
Well, you're looking for
elongation,
an
let's say.
out. You're
Yeah.
looking for an out, right?
A deep
What
dive
can
into
I
that
do to
would
get
make
out?
a great episode.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah. There's
really,
a lot.
I think we have
Lot
one
to
on the
talk about
books.
there. There's a lot to talk about there, yeah, for sure. Because there's so many ways it can go, and everyone's different, and every situation is different.
Mm,
So you have general paths that you can follow, but each scenario is different. The good news is they don't happen very often, so you may be dealing with one or two
mhm.
at a time. If you had lots and lots of mortgages, if you could also do a lifetime of mortgages and never have to get involved in something like that. It can be that safe.
Yep. But for those viewers with very high, let's call it threat detection and anxiety around this, we'll definitely do a deep dive where what you can do when the value of the property is not enough to get you out without losses or even significant losses. There are things
Yeah.
you can do.
Yeah, that sounds like a great topic to dive into for sure.
Good. Well, hopefully this reassures the viewers, and if not, put some more comments
Hey,
below.
if they
And
or yeah, reach out. Like, if you want to talk more about a specific situation or circumstance, I'd love to talk about it. If it's one that I know, I'll give my thoughts. If there's one I don't know, I'll kind of hum along with you. Like, tell me more.
mhm.
Yeah.
Great.
All right,
Thanks.
man.
Thanks, Chris.
Talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.